Ladies and possibly some gentlemen, I'm not going to say why, but if you like yourself some Thor, you're going to like yourself this movie. Or at least a few scenes in it for sure. Rush is directed by Ron Howard, and this film tells the true tale of rivalries James Hunt and Niki Lauda, Formula One racers. So Thor and Frederick Zola from Inglourious Bastards are huge rivals, and they're both Formula One racers. They're extremely competitive with each other. And this film tells the tale of how these guys basically continue to better themselves over and over again as they try to be better than the other person. There are some liberties taken with the true story from what I understand. That's in basically any movie that comes out in Hollywood that is based off a true story. But for the most part, this film really had my attention from scene one, and largely because of the performances. I thought that Chris Hemsworth was very, very good in this movie as this guy, James Hunt. He is basically like the Iron Man of Formula One racing. He wins his races, there are girls, there's drinking, he loves it. Now this other guy comes along who loves racing just as much, but he is so stern and serious about it. He's so meticulous. He wants to craft the perfect car. He wants to use mechanics to make a car better and not just skill on the racing field. And it's actually pretty exciting. Rush is a very interesting film, but it's also a very heartfelt film where you can really start to feel the passion that these characters have for racing. And it's not just about their rivalry. You get to see how these characters mature over time and use the other person to better themselves. And that's one of my favorite things about this movie, actually, is not that it's just like two babies behind the wheel that constantly complaining about the other person being better. They really honestly used each other to better themselves. And that's what I liked about it, because it wasn't just some stupid punk rivalry where they called each other names and gave each other dirty looks and everything. It was like two men who really cared so much about the same thing, and they used the other person to make themselves better at it. And that's one of my favorite things about this movie, is the way that relationship was portrayed. It was really interesting just to see these characters clash, and that's my favorite part of this movie, were those two characters, because the actors portrayed them so well. Daniel Brühl was very good in the film. I'm not sure if I'm saying that incorrectly. He was definitely the most intense character in this movie, the character where you really were like, wow, dude, you are taking this way too far at times. And it got to the point where certain audience members were even like squirming in their seat at how serious these guys were. I'm not going to spoil anything, but just these guys really take racing seriously, and they will go to certain extremes to be better than the other person. Ron Howard did a pretty good job with the racing scenes. A little bit of it felt a little too blurry and sometimes a little too fast cut for me, although there were definitely really good shots in there. There's definitely an oversaturated look to this movie that did kind of get on my nerves a few times, but I think Ron Howard did a really good job with this movie, and the acting was also very good. But really the thing that kept making me interested in this movie were those two characters and watching them try to figure out a way to consistently best the other person. And that was, for me, the most enjoyable part of this movie. But the fact that I was actually interested in this movie really says something, because I'm just so not into Formula One racing at all. And I find it very interesting that I was into this movie as much as I was. And that's because of the characters and because the script was definitely well written. The dialogue was good too. And you really just started to care about how these characters were going to find a way out of their crazy rivalry. And I really enjoyed that about this movie. I'm going to give Rush a B+. So guys, thanks very much for watching. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.